This is also, this is a very remote project. It's in the prairie in North Texas, as I said. And typically a project in this location would use a septic system, but they have designed a leach field to treat the wastewater. So they clean the water, or the waste, from brown water to gray water to potable water before it goes back into the aquifer. They also spend a lot of time, and this is really cool about Lake Flato. They share all their research. A lot of architecture firms do, but on this project they did a very heavy vetting of the red list materials, and that's on their website that you can go and use for your own use if that's something that you're working on a project. So they also had sinker pine on theirs. Theirs was heart pine. And they also raised their building up. I mean, they're at a pretty high elevation, but they raised it a little bit up out of off the ground too. This one met the Living Building Challenge also, and it's a really simple project that's quite delightful. So, what's the AIA doing? And we're doing a whole lot. Last year, the board of directors made the commitment that we were going to focus on climate for the foreseeable future because it is so important that we get architects out in front of that. Many people do not know that 40% of carbon in our that's being released is coming from buildings. So that's a story that we're telling. This year we have a big ad campaign that's going to be telling this story. It's going live in March. It'll be shown around the debates because we have eyes on TVs at debates. We also will have a big social media component of it, and it's telling the story that buildings contribute 40% to the carbon, and that architects are part of the solution to remove that carbon from our buildings. So it's a big deal that we're doing that. We've also, COAT, which is the Committee on the Environment, they had developed a wonderful tool with the COAT Top 10, which are the important things to do for sustainable, resilient, healthy communities. We've adopted the COAT Top 10 to be the AIA framework for design, so we're pushing that forward for the entire organization. We're looking at it around awards to make sure that buildings are meeting our goals of the 2030 commitment. And if you don't know about the 2030 commitment, that's very important. This is the commitment that we started in 2006. And my firm participates in it. I know LS3P participates in it. Carmen's firm participates in it. But unfortunately, only 1% of the firms in the U.S. are participating. And what the challenge is that by 2030, our buildings will be net zero. And we have goals to meet every single year that get reduced energy increases every year. So in 2019, the goal, or 2018, that's the last numbers that we have, the goal was a 70% reduction of estimated energy that would be used. The average firm that was reporting, which is only 1% of the firms in the US, was around 42%. So we have some work to do to increase that, but we have more work to do to make sure that all the firms are committed to the commitment and they are reporting. The reporting's not difficult at all. If you're doing Revit models, you can get the information from your Revit model pretty easy. So this, I challenge you that if you are in a firm, ask why you're not participating in the 2030 challenge. If you're a student and you're interning at a firm, ask why. Ask if you're participating, and if you're not, why not? And encourage your firms to do that, because this is how we're going to be making a huge difference in getting the carbon reduced out of buildings. We also have a climate action plan that we're introducing. This will be coming out next month, and this will be activities and goals that everybody can look to do to help reduce carbon in buildings. There's really some exciting things out there. I heard a guy, how many people were at the AIAS forum in Toronto? So y'all heard him too, Craig Applegath. He was fantastic. He talked about that we have all the tools that we need right now, all the technology that we need to reduce carbon to zero from buildings. We just have to do it. That's the harder part, but we just have to do it. And he showed us some pretty exciting things. There's pond technologies that turns carbon coming out of the smokestack into the building into algae. And then the algae is a product that's sold for makeup or dog food or your smoothie or anything else. So there's really good technology out there, but we just have to have the will to commit to do it. So I'm challenging you to do it. The other thing is we can't do this alone. If you hear about when you think about climate change, each person, each industry brings a different part to it. Our part's buildings, and so we're working with other people that work on buildings. We're working with USGBC. We're working with the Rockefeller Foundation with 100 Resilient Cities. We're working with the UN on climate action. They have the 15 goals, and we're working with those to get those implemented. We're working with the International Finance Corporation. They have a super cool tool. It's called Edge Buildings, and their website is edgebuildings.com. International Finance Corporation is part of the UN, and so their mission is in developing countries. So the tool is free, but the data is not available in the United States since we're not in their mission market. But you can go, it's data for 150 countries. They have the cost of building materials, they have the cost of labor, they have the cost of water, and they have the cost of energy. So when you're working on your preliminary design, you can plug in those, my building's gonna be oriented this way. What if I change the orientation? It'll show you in real time how much money you would save or not save. So how some architects here in the US are using it is you find another location that's similar to the climate where you're working, and you can see the percentages that are saved. It's not the same dollar because building here is not the same as building in a developing country. But you can see how much energy, water, and material costs that you would be saving. So that's something that's really cool that the International Finance Corporation is doing. We're also working really closely with the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Mayors Innovation Project and the Climate Action Mayors, because what we're finding when the U.S. pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, that cities stepped up. Cities said, we will do this. We will have a climate action plan for our city. When I was at the Mayors Innovation Project last week, there were about 50 mayors there. They all had goals, net zero goals for their city on what year they were going to get there. And they have plans on how they're going to get it through buildings, through transportation, through agriculture, through other saving opportunities. So mayors are stepping up, so that's a real opportunity to talk to the mayors of your town to how we can make this happen. And then finally, there's a quote from Rebecca Solnit. She's an activist. I don't know if you're familiar with it. She's a historian and an activist. And she was writing recently about Greta Thunberg, who I'm sure you all know is the young teenage activist from Sweden. And she said, don't ask what will happen, be what happens. So I challenge you to be what happens as we move forward in the next few years. Thank you.
Jane has time for a few questions. Please raise your hand if you have one, and my colleagues Yasmin or Chelsea will bring you a mic, and we ask that you stand up when you ask your question. I would like to start off with one. Jane, how can students get involved with the AIA initiatives to address climate change?